Do ads pay? Eating pets and unaffordable school uniforms. From Trump talking Jaguars to zoos asking for your pets to parents breaking the bank on blazers. Welcome to Mark and Pete, where we chew over the news so you don't have to. Now, here's our first thought.
Devil to pay. It is said that it pays to advertise, but it's a hell of a cost to commercialise. So just be a devil and keep telling lies and sell your soul to legitimise. Yes, many people are sceptical about advertising. Does it tell the truth? People have lots of opinions. Sometimes it can be entertaining and sometimes it can be very serious. According to Donald Trump, particularly when he's looking at Jaguar Land Rover advertising, he has said that their campaigns are stupid and woke. Well, quite aggressive. It's quite simply that some brands succeed when they do advertise, and yet there are others that simply really have some serious issues. Now, Mr. Pete, I wonder, do you think that it pays to advertise, or maybe it's just a waste of money?
Well, I've always been told that in order to justify advertising, you've got to show that you actually got leads and then converted those leads, and therefore it was worthwhile, the actual monetary outlay, let alone the time taken to do it and the risk to reputation in it. And I think that latter one is one that's important, especially today, and the story you're bringing to us today. When Sydney Sweeney does an advert for jeans, and people are able to take it such that she, not just the advert, but she is a fascist and racist. And when Jaguar does an advert and people can take it that they're gay, then, I mean, what you've got is people taking things from the adverts that affect negatively on your brand. So you've got that risk as well. So I would say that quite often, not only does it not pay, it has a negative effect.
Well, it can. It can make a reputation. It can break a reputation.
Yeah,
That's part of the problem. Now, as we saw with the Jaguar Land Rover advert, some people in the creative industry have said that it's actually quite advanced, quite thought-provoking advert, because the advertising actually ditched the Jaguar iconic capped logo. Most people would say, don't do that. That's your heritage.
Yes,
that's what has bought into your audience. Now, the CEO has had to resign over this, and there is going to be a change of leadership. Sales have plummeted dramatically, not just dipped a little bit, but it really has put the company in crisis. And many will attribute that it's not just about the fact that car manufacturing is struggling through the economy today. It's actually because of the advertising. They've just simply pitched their story to the wrong audience. Now, when you look at what Donald Trump has also said on a completely different subject, when talking about the jeans advert, he has highlighted in the media Sydney Sweeney, a registered Republican, has the hottest ad out there. He wrote on Truth Social, "Go get 'em, Sydney." So the fact is that the reason that this advert is perhaps a little bit controversial, it's maybe sort of goes back to a bygone era where essentially genes are playing on the theme of being passed down from their parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. And one of the things here is that Sydney, who's in the advert, wiggles her thighs and is a little bit provocative. But ironically, in this particular case, it's actually boosted American Eagle Jeans' profits and actually got more notoriety. So, Mr. Pete, I could say that in some cases, yes, it's very negative, but if you get it right and you pitch it right with the right type of backing, such as the president, possibly it can improve your image.
Yes. Well, I think here to be honest, Donald Trump was riding on the back of the popularity and notoriety of the ad. In fact, I saw him when he first heard about it because he was in a press conference. He appeared to genuinely have never seen it. So, or if he had seen it, wasn't aware that it was such a big issue. Um, oh no, I remember what it was. Now, he had seen it, but he didn't realise she was Republican. And then he said, "Well, in that case, I love it." And that was then
Yes,
he put the
he's
Truth
showing
Social
his
up
true
later.
colours there.
Yes,
Yes,
and he did said that with a twinkle in his eye, and he played into the humour of it. But what would have been disturbing in the past, or what is disturbing, is it the reason why the Sydney Sweeney ad could have given a negative view, and that is, um, people are claiming that it's racist in that she is a white woman, she's Caucasian. She says that she's got great genes. Of course, it's simply a joke that genes, as in inherited characteristics,
yes, a
sounds the
pun.
same as genes, as in the clothing. That's what it is.
Yeah,
It's a joke on that. But because she's blonde hair, blue eyes, yes, it's the Aryan race. It's obviously against black people because everything has to be made to be about black people, even if it's got nothing to do with them. And total taking of a simple message, I've got good genes. Yes, it was making that pun, that she is a beautiful young woman with blue eyes and other natural inherited assets, which while not on full display, were discernible. And so, she has good genes in that sense. That's the when I saw it. So the ad was played at the start of a podcast that I was watching, and I saw the ad. And what is the issue? It never occurred to me, or I don't think it would occur to most normal people, that claiming that she had good genes was to do with her race. And
yes,
yet, I reckon, I think it's, you could talk about what advertising executives are like. I would say that they knew exactly what they were doing, wanted that response, and the notoriety helped both with the advertising of the jeans and with the new movie that she's in called Americana.
right. Well, here you go. Because Alan Adamson, who's the co-founder of the marketing consultancy
Yes, go
Metaforce,
ahead. What do they say?
said that American Eagle nailed the ad. What he wanted basically went on to say, it is exponentially harder than it was years ago, where success in marketing today is to get consumers sharing adverts on social media. And it's true that really traditional ways of advertising have changed. In the 1970s, if you appeared on TV ads, you had a very wide audience. If you've got messages on TikTok or and many other social media platforms, it's more likely that you are going to reach your audience. So, but the principle's the same, isn't it? It's about getting your message right, getting it positioned, being ethical, being trustworthy. And that's a fine balance, isn't it? Because you
Yes.
are
Well,
wanting to have to punch through a very large and
well,
loud noise that's out there.
yeah, well, yes, it's because this is how ads do pay. You hit on it there. It's when there is what's usually called organic sharing of the ad, and you for that to happen, you need it to be remarkable in some way. Of course, controversy is what's a shortcut to doing that. Not that we on Market would ever do that
Oh, certainly
in
not.
advertising or titling our episodes and claiming that people are eating pets and that sort of thing. We never do that. But what
No.
we what they are doing is something similar to that. Now, they read the room right. Their research was good. Jaguar, quite obviously, got it wrong. In fact, you can compare the two companies. What happened afterwards with the share price?
Yes.
Jaguar got it wrong, and in fact may have doomed the brand because cars such as Jaguar are all about brand. Um, as soon as you look at where all the parts of the car are from, you realise it's not quite so British after all, and it's
Yeah.
sold on being British and the sort of car villains drive. Suave, sophisticated villains. That's what you're expecting, and it gives it a certain cachet. If it's just
Yeah.
like a Ford or one of the Japanese brands, it's suddenly loses any advantage that it's got from the name, and that seems to be what they've done. I said earlier that it made it look like the car was gay, And normally at this point, a commentator would say, not that not there's anything wrong with being gay. Of course, I can't say that as a Christian because there is something wrong with it. But what I would say is not in the normal public perception is there anything wrong with it. It's just the Jaguar buyers don't like it,
Well, I think
so they read the
the
room wrong.
mistake, the bit that I think is the biggest mistake is abandoning the logo. When
Oh yeah,
you
sure, yeah,
abandon
yeah.
your heritage, I mean, that to me is flawed. How the executive team allowed that to go out without even reinforcing the brand, that's your symbol, the thing that people have bought into for decades. That's where I think you sort of lost the plot. Now you can definitely make a commentary about the choice of actors, the style, the positioning, the slogans. They do all matter, but you got to be really faithful to your brand. And I think that's really, if you look at it, I think that the new leadership will probably almost certainly reintroduce that back into their advertising. But let's see. Anyway, let's move on to a different story. Now, this one is all about inadvertently ferocious. There once was a hungry wild jaw. It was very grisly and began to roar. It bit a tail which went down its craw along with a very sharp paw. The hungry jaw continued to gnaw until it eventually realized what it saw. It had swallowed itself, bone and claw, and now the jaw is no more. Well, this is quite a remarkable story. Yes, the zoo in Denmark, Aalborg Zoo, has asked for donations of live chickens, rabbits, pets, such as guinea pigs, basically to feed their predators. Now, this is not a joke. This is a genuine request that has come out. The zoo accepts donations of live horses and many other pets, Mr. Pete. I ask you, what about your pet dog? Why not stop there and let's go on a little bit further? Why not your children? What do you think of this story
Now, in
about
order
asking
to
for the public to donate its pets?
Yes, I know, and one could say, well, if you're going to do that, why limit it, as you say, to pets? Why not? There's a few unwanted politicians we have lying around.
Quite
But I
right.
think in order to answer this question seriously, I think the way to start that I'd like to start is talk about the definition of a psychopath. A psychopath is someone who can make a decision based on their own needs or wants, or just on logic, without thinking about sentiment or the value of people or animals or things. And so, in this question, I think you would say a psychopath or maybe a Danish person. Are the two synonymous? I think I'll leave that for the public to decide. But a psychopath would be able to say, yes, of course, if you don't want your pet anymore, why not have it eaten by a predator? And if you're going to do it, why don't you just put it like a version of the Hunger Games? So this goes literally hunger, and gets the predators to hunt down Fifi the dog and that sort of thing. Why not? Why not have that? I think the hamsters wouldn't last long enough to make it entertaining. But who knows? Who knows? Be interesting to say. Would this psychopath would say? Obviously, as you know, Mark, I'm not a psychopath, so I wouldn't say that. But I think the thing is, that's what a psychopath would think. It's logical to do it that way. But I make a couple of points about it. One is, I made a remark about Denmark. I think it's a European thing. In Britain, we don't do things like that to our
No,
pets.
no,
It's just something we don't do.
no.
If your pet has to
Don't
die,
do it,
well,
folks.
you have it humanely put down, and then you have a little bury it nicely and have a little weep about it. That's what you do, and
Yes.
I would say that. Say just to prove that I'm not a psychopath, even I would not do this because I think that such feelings of sentiments towards your pets are part of what make us human. They become part of our family. Are you really, as you suggested, gonna give your unwanted family members to be
Not
eaten by
quite.
predators?
Well, what's remarkable is on the
Aside from the
Aalborg
mother-in-law.
web, well, of course, and I'm sure Yes.
To put in the old joke.
I'm sure our listeners will be happy about that one. Now, on the website of the zoo, it says they've got pictures of tigers devouring a piece of meat, and they lay out the conditions for donating pets, including such things as horses. Now, what's remarkable here is, and I know that you're probably all reaching now for your tax returns, yes, by handing over their animals, such as horse donors, can receive a tax deduction. The- What an
Yes.
incentive. Now, of course, the deputy director of the zoo, Pia Nielsen, said that the zoo's carnivores had been fed smaller livestock for many, many years. Yes, I'm sure they have. But really, I think that to your point, this plays into the psyche of the culture of a country, doesn't it? Because why would anybody want to give their pets, whether they're an ailing pet, a dead pet, a live pet, or any other pet, in the way that they would know that they're being going to be devoured by some hungry tiger? It to me, it's sort of unethical,
Well,
and
yes. There's an
maybe that's
interesting,
that's
yeah,
the
yeah,
difference.
there's an interesting Bible verse from Proverbs that I think applies here. It seems like the zoo are trying to be kind by keeping their predators properly fed, but in fact they haven't seen it. They haven't seen the relationship with the pet. Proverbs 12 verse 10 says, "The righteous care for the needs of their animals, but the kindest acts of the wicked are cruel." They're trying to be kind, but in fact they're being cruel by incentivizing people to send their pets to be eaten, which seems as a normal British person to seem to be inhumane. And I think at the end of the show we always ask for listeners to send in their comments. But just to play here, send in your comments. Maybe if especially if you're not British, and most of our listeners are not British. Would you do this? Would you have your
Mm.
pet sent to be eaten by a predator? Let us know. I'd be interested to
Yes.
hear.
Can we make a clear distinction? We want you sending your comments, not your pets.
Yes,
So
not the pets, not unless they got a good eating on them.
well, what's interesting, the zoo does actually go on in their statement, and the director says, is that when keeping carnivores, it is necessary to provide them with meat. Fair enough. Preferably with fur, bones, etc., to give them as natural a diet as possible. Now, it is, and we should say that the actual animals that are donated will be euthanized, and they are treated beforehand. They're not just thrown live. But again, I still would agree with you. It seems a little bit horrific, doesn't it? It's like one of those
Yeah,
bad horror movies.
yeah.
I could see the new movie coming out, Eat My Pet.
Or
somebody
the famous,
somebody ate my pet, or
yeah. There's the famous old British movie.
yes.
They eat horses there, don't they? Which plays on this the different sentimental attitude towards the animals they own by the British and the continental Europeans. Look
Yes.
it up.
Well, what was interesting is that many years ago there was a well-known comedian called Freddie Starr, and the headline in the Sun newspaper was "Freddie Starr ate my hamster," and
Yes,
it caused enormous uproar because
yes,
the very concept of being able to eat a hamster um, might seem amusing, but obviously riled a lot of the public. But
yes.
there we
We
go.
don't eat our
Let's
pets here.
don't eat our pets. Let's move on to a different subject,
Yes.
which does affect some of our younger listeners, and it's wearing a bit thin. A school uniform must conform and adhere to the dress code convention, but it goes against the norm and can cause a storm if you're still wearing it to your old age pension. Now, I
Yes.
know that I was always asked to wear my uniform for as long as I possibly could until all the threads just basically disappeared. And I know that Mr. Pete will remember that. But
Yes.
the point is this. When you actually look at how many low-income families in England and in Wales and Northern Ireland are now struggling to meet the costs of the increasing burgeoning value of a school uniform. Mr. Pete, I know that you have children, and putting children through school can be expensive when you're paying for new shoes, badges, blazers, and shorts and skirts. How is it possible now that we've got to ourselves to a situation where parents are finding it difficult to just simply clothe their children?
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's due to a financial situation that we shouldn't be in. Well, we've talked at length on this show before about big mistakes with the economy that have been made over the years, but especially since 2020. So I won't go over those issues now. But what schools do about it is the school that my children used to attend would keep a bank of clothes there. The clothes that people had worn before were giving into the school, and then you could get them for your children. And it was in this particular school, you had quite a lot of children that going up through the school. They had quite big families, and so you would see them being handed down within the family. But it would certainly happen, from the school to people from different families, and that was very useful. So, but how have we got to this position? Well, I suppose having dealt with that side of it, the financial side of it, and letting people have second-hand clothes, the other side of it is because we insist on people wearing uniforms. If you didn't, if
Yes.
you were just allowed to wear your everyday clothes, there wouldn't be an issue
Well, now,
of having to buy new clothes every year.
well, of course, there is the counter argument, which is the statutory school clothing is normally there for a number of reasons. One, it helps to standardize, meaning that if you are a child, it is very clear which school you're going to. So for any reason, if you were found outside of school, by the police or the member of public, you can identify that child. The other one is to effectively make it all standard, meaning that if you had just normal fashionable clothes, there wouldn't be the one-upmanship, meaning the type of trainers or jeans or shirts that you might wear that are fashionable and expensive, whereas other children couldn't. So therefore, you don't have like a two-tier system. You have one system. But the trouble, here's the thing. Now, the average cost of a school uniform, how much do you think that is in pounds sterling? That's
I would
including
say
obviously the shoes and the.
£127.50.
No,
Oh,
it's much
okay.
higher.
Right. Well,
So
let's. That was just me guessing. So we'd say £20.
so let's take it for primary school teachers, for
Uh,
just primary school children. These are ones who are around about 4, 5, 6.
so are you saying that it would? I mean, I'm pretty sure. I'm just saying that I could certainly get a full school uniform for under £200.
According to figures, which is the
Yeah.
Department for Education, the average school uniform for school children at primary school is £340.
Okay.
And around 454 for those in secondary school education. Now, that is a
Now,
lot of money, especially if you have to keep doing that every year.
yes, it is a lot more. There's a couple of things in that. Um, the price does seem a bit high, but that's. I'm not doubting your figures. I'm just saying that it does. I mean, because it's a few years ago that my kids were at school, 2 years, and during that time there has been an increase in cost. But the thing is, it really does depend on the school. They can insist on a specific blazer, for example, or a
Exactly.
particular jump, and then the prices
Correct.
go up. Some schools,
Correct.
and I think this, as we move on to solutions, is one way forward. You have a school uniform, but there's only one thing about it that's actually specific, and that could be provided. For example, you could say you have to wear dark grey trousers, and for boys anyway, dark grey trousers, a royal blue jumper. You specify the type of blue, a white shirt, and we provide the school tie. So and
Yep.
then they're generic, and then you can then get them much cheaper. That,
Now,
of course, has a slight problem in that you could wear an expensive jumper or a cheap jumper. But
correct.
yeah. So there is that issue, but you can get that to a certain extent with the footwear and some items. Normally
When
the
I was at
trousers aren't
junior school,
specified.
and this is the way I thought that it would have been sensible to do it, meaning that you, as long as you adhered to having a blazer and certain types of trousers, you need to have a badge. But when I was
Yes.
at school, you were given the badge.
Yeah.
So you didn't
Exactly.
have to
That's another way of
pay
doing
for a
it.
branded set of clothing, which meant that your
Yeah.
parents would sew it on, and you could have had a cheap blazer, a cheap pair of
Yeah.
trousers, and it wouldn't have mattered. It would have been very cost effective to have changed them over time. Because children, I don't know whether you know, but they actually grow up. The
Yeah.
fact is you
Well,
have to
I think
keep
the thing is,
constantly changing their clothing.
One solution would be to have the school provide it, but the problem with that
Yes.
is the families treating the uniforms in different ways. How well are you laundering them, looking after them, repairing them? Are you repairing them at all? And so some are going to need more than one uniform a year, maybe, and others not. So I think that is fraught with problems, fraught with issues. But if like you say,
Why do we need a tie? Why do we need a tie
well,
today? Now that's a cost because they are actually very expensive. So you
you
could
don't
take
need a
elements
tie.
away from the uniform.
Yeah,
Well,
you don't
quite a
need a
lot
tie
of
if you have a
them do
badge.
actually
Yeah,
require you to wear
no, I know.
a
Yes,
tie,
yeah.
and that's what I'm saying. Why can't we help parents to say, look, we're going back to the basics. What do you need? You need a blazer. You need either a skirt or a pair of trousers. You need clearly shoes. But
Yes.
the school should provide the badge, but don't have all these other peripheries like caps and
No, no.
bad
A, a,
and ties.
a polo
I don't
shirt
see
is
the
quite
point.
good as
A
well.
polo shirt, yeah, it could be,
Yeah,
yeah.
because that can look quite neat. But you don't need a tie. And you could say only one button undone. You can have nice little school rules like that. Or you could say you must
Yes.
have all the buttons done up and then you let it slide. You could need a little bit of leeway. Let it slide if it's just one button. That sort of thing. And I think that will work. I think that we've really hit mark on this is the Mark and Pete solution. Generic clothing, and one thing like a badge. Or what do you call it when you sew it on? It's not really called a badge, is it? Whatever the name for that is. The listeners can let us know the word for
Well,
the thing that's sewn onto a blazer. They
well, it is a badge. It is a
it is
cloth
a badge,
badge,
but
but
I
yes,
thought there was a special name for it. But generic clothing
emblem.
is the answer.
Well, exactly. And I think you need to allow parents to have a little bit of a flexibility around the type of clothing that they can provide, as long as it conforms to a certain standard.
I think
I mean,
one of
clearly
the
wearing jeans is not going to work, but certainly
no
having,
no
smart
no,
trousers or
and one of
skirts.
the and one of the big items is shoes because people don't wear the sort of shoes they're expected to wear to school in everyday life. They wear trainers. I think banning trainers is a bad move. In fact, you could have trainers as part of the school uniform
The
because they're
challenge
so
and one of
wide.
the
At
reasons,
the moment, they're
well, the
so
reason they've
widely
done
worn.
that is the one-upmanship, because some parents can afford literally hundreds of pounds worth of training shoes, whereas others are walking around with very, you know, basic training shoes. So
Yes, with
it's trying to cut that out. That's
in
why.
my day, I used to have Winfield trainers, which was Woolworth's own brand. If you remember back in the day when other people were wearing Adidas or Adidas. Yeah, I could see that issue, but I think you could specify, a plain black trainer or something like that, rather than the sort of shoes that they're not going to
I
wear
think
outside of school.
I think that when we look at this subject, it's a nightmare for many parents because, as we know, you've got to conform to the standard because you don't want to put your child in a difficult situation. But when you look at the wider picture of costs for food and bills and everything else, this is just yet another burden, isn't it? But maybe, as I said, maybe the school can help on certain things, maybe sort of widen the policy a little bit, and maybe, dare I say, that the government, let's have a little thought about that one, the government may be able to find better ways of
Yeah,
maybe
but
changing some of the ways that they actually invest
yeah, if I could just
in our children.
mention one thing which worked in the area where I used to run a food bank and various churches. We would have a clothes bank as well, and
Yes.
which in the build up to the start of term there'd be school clothing available, and that sort of thing can really help. And so, just saying to our listeners, if there isn't one in your area, they're really easy to start. Or you don't need much storage space. You could run one out of your garage effectively. So, the more people do this, sort of, locally, just for the streets around you, maybe say, oh yeah, give me your old school clothes, and I'll make sure people are available to people. Very easy to do. So that's something that people can help with at a local level. Mark and Pete watchword: localism.
There you go. Well, I wonder what our listeners think about these subjects. There's a lot to think about, a lot to cogitate, a lot to chew on. So
Yes,
I'll leave you to
so to
close
speak.
out.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's really all from us for this week. But we want you to think about what's just been going on. we've served you up perhaps a little recipe for disaster, where you have adverts going wrong, where you're feeding your pets to predators, and where you can't afford to wear what to wear to school. But maybe there's solutions to all those problems. So just let us know. We have been Mark and Pete, and you have been listening avidly. Catch you next time.